am I going here? So welcome everybody to this webinar. We're very excited today to share our story with you, with some insights into the journey we've taken over the last 2 years to grow our agency, and some of the tactics that will relate to everything. Oops, I've got a bit of feedback there. Sorry, I got rid of that. Sorry for that little technical info there. So we've got Peter Czapp, who is the founder and director at the WOW company. And we've got Jonathan Leafe, who is our consultant that worked with us over the last 2 years to give us that direction and that growth. And Peter is gonna, everything's off the table. Peter can ask us any questions we want to give you the insights into how we've created that growth and what it looks like for us coming out of COVID as an agency moving forward. So over to you, Peter.
Thank you. I'm really excited about this. I get to ask you any questions. One of the reasons I'm really excited is because I've watched from afar your journey over the last 18 months, Sean, working with Jonathan. I've seen the incredibly positive impact on the work you're doing together on your revenue, and definitely your profits. Obviously, as running the accounts, we can definitely see that. And I'm curious to hear a little bit about that journey. Also, I'm really curious to understand what you guys are going to be doing differently going forward. Jonathan, I'm definitely keen to get your insights. You know, you built an agency from nothing up to 2 million revenue. You ran about 40 staff, and I think you completed your management buy-in to the business. And we were chatting back then, and I was always fascinated about the ideas that you had, and it's really interesting to watch you apply those to other agencies now in a mentoring capacity. And again, I get to see the impact, the positive impacts that you have on those businesses' accounts. So there's lots I want to extract from you for the benefit of those people listening, and that's what we'll do for the next 40 minutes or so. We will have an opportunity to take questions at the end, so feel free to use the Q&A facility here in the toolbar, and I will pick those questions up and grill these two at the end. So Sean, first, just a little bit of background very briefly on Red-Fern. What's led you to this point? What sort of agency are you now, and how have you emerged into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the initial starting point was we were probably about 8 strong in staff, and we were an agency that kind of tried to win every job that was put across our desk. But over the last 2 years working with Jonathan, we've really nailed it down to more of a technology and marketing agency, and specifically focusing on manufacturing, SaaS and retail businesses. There's still a bit of a broad mix there. You probably could go a bit more niche, but that's the kind of direction that this whole 2-year journey has took us on, and even to drill that down even more over the coming weeks, months and years post-COVID. So yeah.
So technology and marketing, was it a conscious decision to focus on those 2 areas?
No, not at all. No, we were born out of a web design company. We brought on developers, to progress the business and progress our knowledge and the offerings that we could give to clients. But the marketing side of it, we signed up to HubSpot probably about 3.5-4 years ago now, and that's played a massive part in what we've done as well, because we heavily invested into the content. We have really good rankings for a lot of inbound questions that people ask around web design, business development. So we are self-perpetuating, hopefully, in some of the leads that we have now. But yeah, it was a long journey with the marketing. You've got to have a lot of faith in your content when you're doing it, because it's a long game. It is a long game when you're doing that side of it. Yeah.
And the niches as well. You mentioned some very, very clear niches there. Is that something that again was a conscious decision, or is that sort of evolved naturally?
That's evolved naturally. Yeah, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I think it was the guy from the Two Bobs, actually, the Blair Enns and the other guy, and he was saying that unless you really have a focused mindset when you create your agency, I think you'd fall into your niche, because we're big on the technology. Every one of us in the agency enjoys working on technology, so that just naturally evolved itself. And then the marketing, because we'd moved into HubSpot, again, that's kind of took us down that route. And then the manufacturing, SaaS and retail businesses, it's purely because we've ended up working with some big companies in the UK because of that, and I think that's what's taking us down that route now, because we've got to work with those big companies.
Okay, so I'm going to bring Jonathan in a second, but just to sort of help everyone understand how you got involved with Jonathan in the first place. Something I'm curious of is, your business was doing fine. Your business was doing well, and you made the decision to bring on an external mentor and advisor. And I'm curious as to why you decided to do that. What was the trigger? How did you feel that was the right thing to do? And also, how did you go about choosing the right one? Because there's lots of really good ones.
Yeah. I mean, it's I'm a big believer in the universe provides if you ask for it. But it was, we were at 8 staff. I had no one to lean on as such as a director and a company owner. So kind of making it up as I went along, obviously looking at what other agencies are doing. But it was ironic that Jonathan found us. He actually found us. So he could see that we were at 8 staff. He knew what growing pains we were going to go through. So he reached out to us at the perfect time, to be honest. And then I can still picture it now, going over to Manchester, sitting in a bar, going through what he could do, what, his track record, what he's done, and then coming out of that bar with my creative director saying, what do you think? And I just said, look, let's just do it. We're not going to move forward if we don't start working alongside people that have walked the walk before. So yeah, that was the decision really.
And Jonathan, when you work with a business, I'm curious as to the process that you go through. Do you always have the same starting point and take them through an identical process, or is there an assessment that you do at the start to work out where to begin? What's the standard process, and what did you find when you started with Sean and the team?
Well, the process is sort of like basically the same, but it all depends on the characters, because so the first sort of like meeting you have, or the second meeting, are all to do with discovery and just finding what makes the individuals tick. Because at that particular time, I'm just talking to the leadership of the agency, so I've got really no idea about their clients or the team or anything like that. So I'm trying to find out what their aspirations are, what their capabilities are, where they've come from, where they want to go, how they interact with each other, and then just try and that's the starting point really. And then by the third meeting, if you like, then I've started to formulate a bit of a plan, and then I'll have a word with Sean and his other directors and say, look, this is what I think. This is what I think of you guys, and this is what I think you're capable of. And then start to introduce a few of the things that I've learned along my journey. That's pretty much my start point.
The capability thing is interesting. To what extent do you either with Red-Fern or with other people sort of lift people's sights around what they're capable of? Because there'll be lots of people listening to this, and I'm sure you recognise this, that are operating in a way that's potentially limiting for them. And I'm curious to see your experience of this and to what extent or how you can help agencies unlock that potential.
Yeah, well, most agencies form because someone's good at something, and that's they become a one-man band, and then they get good at something, get a client, and then a couple of people join them, and suddenly they've got a little agency. But the limiting factor generally is because they're good at something, they stick with it. And actually, what they're generally more often than not is actually they don't have the business acumen or the business nous or the experience of growing a business, and that's what I can give to them. And then I've got to find out if they have that capability of taking that on board, because that's a big shift. It's a big sea change from being good at something to actually running a business. And it's not the same thing.
I know a lot of agencies are using the current situation as an opportunity to completely rethink what they're doing. And which is really timely that we're here talking about the transformation that Red-Fern have been on, and I know you've taken others on. Where's the starting point for that transformation? So if people sat here today are in varying stages of impact from COVID. We've got some research out at the moment that shows around 8% of agencies are doing better and anticipate doing better through this. Around about a quarter are expecting things to be about the same, and the rest, that's 2/3, expecting to be down, and some of them significantly down. And I think all of them are using this as an opportunity to rethink. Where's the starting point for that, from your perspective, Jonathan?
Yeah, Sean, I don't know if you can just bring up that. We've got one graphic here called, I call it the triangle of happiness. I know Sean always pulls my leg about the number of triangles that I I pull up there. So this is what I work with to start off with. There's only three elements to a really successful business, but they all need a lot of work on, and they all need focus on. And the starting point is the clients. If you've got good clients in your agency, then by default you're going to be fine. But most agencies don't have that, because most agencies have, and I was guilty of it for years and years and years and years, because you just thought that's what to do. So you have an open door policy, and someone knocks on the door, you let them in, and basically you're just looking at how much they're going to pay you. But actually at the same time, you've got a back door, which other clients are just walking out of. So it took me a long time to realize this, but actually if you actually curate your clients and put them through a very stringent checklist to make sure that they're absolutely ideal for your business, it is going to be absolutely transformational and very, very quickly. And that's the success with Sean, in all honesty. Because if you've got the right clients and they see you as a partner rather than a supplier, you're already halfway to winning the battle. And those clients you can talk to, you can develop with them. They're going to grow, you grow with them. You can think of things that they haven't thought of, so you get more activity from that client. That client then starts to recommend you. So you start to become a bit of a magnet, really, for clients coming into you, rather than hunting for clients all the time. You're actually farming. You're farming the clients that you've got, and they're introducing you to new opportunities all the time. It's just a no-brainer. And actually, that's where we spend probably half our time when we're talking to each other, Sean and his team, about his clients and what opportunities there are and what can we do to actually help those clients as a partner grow their businesses. And that allows you also to charge more as well, because clients don't see that they're actually getting something by the hour. They're getting real value from what you do. And that doesn't have a price. It has a value. And so, it just benefits every single part of it. But the other part of the triangle, which is really important as well.
Jonathan, sorry to interrupt, but
no,
cool. I definitely want to cover both of those. But I know people listening will be wanting to understand more about kind of the before and after around the client bit. So if it's okay, I'm just going to ask a question of Sean around this client bit. So what Jonathan talks about makes complete sense. Who wouldn't want better quality clients paying higher fees? What does that look like in reality? What did Red-Fern look like before, and what did it look like after? And what were the practical things that you did along that journey?
So at the start of that journey, probably the average entry level order value was probably around 4 or 5k for a project, and it was all project based. We actually did the maths for the business with Jonathan, and I think we were 18% like tech retainers, hosting, and then the rest of it was all made up of projects. There was no marketing retainers at that point. So the actual journey of changing our tone of voice, changing the way that we speak to clients, as in, we're here as a partner, we're not here as a project. Whilst this might be an initial project, what are you trying to achieve as a business? What's your business goals? Your website is just a tactic to achieve that goal. And then we created processes. So, giving a client a questionnaire just to qualify if they're a tire kicker, and not waste your time with people that are just fishing for prices or things like that. So it was, and then once that whole process had started with the questionnaires, delving into a business goal instead of a project goal, the whole conversation of marketing, social, tech retainers, whatever that looked like, came into play. And then we started talking on, probably the first retainers started around the 3-4k mark, monthly retainers for marketing, for tech retainers, and up to the biggest retainer that we had, still have, is a 12k a month tech retainer. So it's, like I say, I can't thank Jonathan enough for where that journey took us on, but that working from projects up to retainers, I think we're about 51% retained partnerships with people. So we're taking it from 18% to 51%. And as Jonathan always says, and I'm sure all agency owners will understand this, is those sleepless nights have now gone because we're already winning before we open the doors. So it's took us on that. Does that answer the question, I suppose?
Yeah, it does really well, because I love the idea of some of the practical tips around the value of projects, moving to retainers, that questionnaire to qualify people, and just moving the conversation up a level to the business results. I think they're really, really useful practical tips. Just if we could go back to that triangle now, Jonathan, where would you say is the next place for agencies to go looking?
Well, of course, they all happen in tandem, but the other part is the team, and the team and the leadership, and this is where Sean was talking about it. So we start talking about the culture of the business very, very early on. So when you've got this triangle of happiness, there's got to be something in it for everybody. So the client wants a fair price, they want value, they want good response, they want people who really care about them. The team wants interesting work, they want well remunerated, they want a nice place to work, they want good bosses, and the leadership want all of that to happen in tandem, because the leadership have obviously got different hats. You know, there might be the managers, there might be the directors, and there might also be the business owners. So they want obviously a reliable business that's going to deliver reliable growth and revenue for their investment in the business. So it's all got to work in tandem. So you keep working on that. And Sean's done a brilliant job on his culture. I mean, the one big thing, Sean, will, if you just go back to your, so we can see your face, Sean, and the first thing that I did, you will remember, I went into your office and I walked up the stairs to where all the directors sat. I said, "What are you sat up here for? You can't understand anything that's going on in your business." And within a month or so, they'd moved back into the teams, away from this upstairs. They're all facing the wall. I went up there. I said, "What the hell are you doing up here facing the wall? Get down in amongst it. Listen to what everybody's got to talk about." So the culture's gone from one. It wasn't broken, but it's gone from one of just, well, everyone just went to work. Now there's something that's a common purpose, and that's what's really transformational. I haven't done it. I've just let Sean and Adam and Alex do it themselves. I've just facilitated it, really.
And there was something along the way. You mentioned previously, Sean, the impact that your how did you describe it? Your culture book.
Culture book. Right? Yeah, I've got it here.
Can you just explain what that is and what it?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a little bit out of date because we've actually grown up and matured as an agency. We're probably going to re-look at that at the moment. But what I found, and again, it was a suggestion from Jonathan, was when we were at 8 staff and then this journey began and we started speaking to bigger clients, the stress in the business, increased slightly. My wants and needs of the staff increased slightly. And then, there was a couple of friction points, and it's like, well, how do we want people to act in our business? Do they even know what this business is about and how they should be acting in this business towards the clients? So again, the culture book for me was the biggest part of being able to scale in staff. I mean, I know there's another stage that we're going to have to go through to go beyond 16 staff, 20, whatever that looks like. And that's why we're still with Jonathan. But that culture book, for the few staff that didn't buy into what we were trying to achieve, they actually left the company of their own accord because they didn't buy into the culture book. And then and I always worried about staff leaving. It was, oh, what if they leave? What are we going to do? But once we created that culture book, it was like, if our business was a human being and you can't get on with that human being, we don't want you working with us. And it really put it really put like tangibility to who we were and what we were doing.
So what's in that culture book? I'm desperate to get a glimpse of it.
I mean, it's like I say, it's. I mean, there's a few opening statements, but it really does just talk about. I'll find the page. Find the page. How do we do it?
I should say that this is something that, I mean, I'm very grateful to the guys at Strawberry. I'm pretty sure that James is on the webinar now. But James and Dom, who were my fellow directors, did an absolutely brilliant job on bringing the culture of Strawberry together. Yeah. I just watched in awe as they sort of like glued it together. So I was there just helping them. So I've taken a lot, I've learned a hell of a lot from those guys on how to build a good culture.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if I can say that because I think, but what people say. Okay. So this was just pulling out internally what we think about each other and what we say about each other. So always monitoring, committed, creative, efficient, hardworking, professional, great culture, recommended. So, and it was just putting everything that we think about ourselves and everything that the clients think about us into a physical asset, so that when somebody new joins us, we can say, "This is us. Do you buy into what we're doing?" And yeah, that was the opening.
And I know that's made a really big impact, and it's great to see. Just go back to the third point on that triangle, the leadership. Yeah. Jonathan, what tips do you have based on what you've seen in your own agency and countless others over the years about what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, well, my personal style of leadership is definitely from the front. It's being actively involved. Never had an office, never had a PA. Always been right in the thick of it, listening, talking, and that's when you sort of, even from when there was like 2 in the agency to 40 in the agency, it never changed. I always like that. So I think it's really important that exists. You can't ask anybody to do anything that you're not prepared to do yourself. That's an obvious motto. But the other thing, of course, is the leadership has got to be really hungry for knowledge and learn from others. I really wish I had a few little mentors along the way, and people that I really respected and listened to, and going to meetings with yourself, Peter, those sort of things, that you can never ever stop learning, and you must actually have that as your top one on your to-do list. Learn some more. There's always something you can learn. I've actually, interestingly enough, I've probably learned more in the last 3 years than I learned in the past 10 years, because I've suddenly been exposed to all sorts of different types of businesses. And, you start learning again, and it's a wonderful, wonderful experience. So leadership is all to do with about learning. And then, of course, passing that. Leaders are good mentors. They should always be mentoring their team. They should look at their team as, when they walk through that door, and say, you've got to be grateful. I mean, this is another thing that Sean has struggled with to start off with, but is absolutely on it now. Sean thought he employed people, but actually I said, no, Sean, these are people who will make your business fly. And you've got to be grateful that they're coming to work for you. They've chosen to work for you. They've chosen to develop their careers with you and Red-Fern. So it's incumbent on you to mentor them to be the very, very best version of themselves that they can be. And that might be through some training, technical training, just human training, just being nice, giving praise, feeding forward. Don't say when something's gone wrong. I don't believe in, all right, you can dig up some bodies from time to time, but actually just say, how can we improve from something that we've learned? So, you're always rolling forward. That's really what Sean's got really good at. I don't know what you think about that, Sean.
Yeah, no, I mean, only a few weeks ago I said, I don't think people go out of the way to make mistakes. So there's no point chastising somebody when, mistakes happen, and it's very rare that they do happen. But I think the leadership side of things for me is, I had to have somebody like yourself, Jonathan. Then we got introduced to Peter, so you've got the leadership from a finance perspective within your agency. We don't employ a finance director, we don't employ a sales director, you've got to surround yourself with these people that are already leaders. And then, hopefully I learn from that. So yeah, I'm 45, so I'm not too old to learn yet.
So something I'm curious of. So you mentioned a hunger for knowledge. So a question for you, Sean. There must be occasions where it's tricky to carve out that time to learn and develop yourself, and to give that time to the team, because you're busy doing stuff, right? It's frenetic and feels like now more than ever. So how have you done that over the last couple of years to actually commit to that? Where have you got to sort your knowledge from and carved out the time to get it?
I mean, carving the time out was very much, again, around pulling the team together. So the other directors, Adam and Alex, they're now our shareholders in the business, and it allowed some of the responsibility that I had for the 100% of the business to be passed to the creative side of the business, the technical side of the business. It's myself that looks after the marketing side of the business at the moment. So by allowing me to push some of that responsibility onto other people, allowed me to increase my knowledge around, people like Jonathan, people like yourself. There's a few different people I follow around the web, just to understand how they run their agencies and what their take is on agency life and our industry. Is that? I think I've missed a bit of your question there, haven't I? What was the other bit?
Yeah, so you're carving out the time, and then and where you go once you've carved out that time. So you mentioned just sort of looking around and just finding the people that have been there, seen it, done it, and that can, because you can't employ a full-time finance director in a small agency. So where can you go?
Yeah, so again, it's aligning with mentors and partners for me. I just, there's no point loading yourself up and just being stressed all the time. That was one of the other big things that again, working with Jonathan has done, it's allowed me to appreciate not getting stressed, not getting anxious about the business anymore. You just allow yourself time for yourself, time to think, time to strategize, and then also put responsibility on other people. Don't put all the responsibility on yourself. That was a big thing for me. Sitting there, I remember the night sitting there at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to bring the server back up. That would never happen again now. It's yeah.
So this is really interesting. So at a time of maximum stress, you seem, and I know you well enough to know that you are genuinely chilled out. So it feels like there's more at stake than ever before. And your business has not been unaffected by what's been happening, really clear. Yeah. And yet, so where's this sense of calm coming from? What specifically are you doing that gives you?
I think the whole, the journey that we've been on, you'll know from the book that, we'd had a fantastic year, and then COVID pretty much hit at the year end. And then I think because we'd had a good year, we have got decent cash reserves, and working with Jonathan, once we went through that panic phase of, wow, COVID, what's happening? We put a plan in place. There has been a few furloughs. The staff have been fantastic, looking at percentages, slight reductions on the salaries to get us through this period, with a mindset of paying people back if we can do further down the line. But we've just leveled off so that we're not burning any cash through COVID. And I think as long as we've got that cash reserve, people have got the jobs, we keep the culture, the clients that are working with us are all bought into what we're doing just as much as we're bought into what they're trying to achieve. We've give clients payment breaks. Some clients have gone on 60 days, but we've got a plan that we know we're going to hopefully, keep going 12, 24 months further down the line. So that's where the calmness comes from. Don't get me wrong, there's still a duck paddling under the water when it comes to some days when you're working from home. I think that's been the biggest challenge at the moment, is the motivation at home. So coming into the office today has been like, wow, I'm back home, let's crack on. But I know it's not going to last for another few weeks. Yeah.
It's really interesting from what we've seen with our clients, those that have that plan, as soon as they have that plan, things just settle down emotionally. They know what they need to do. They can take positive action. They can focus on a positive future. I think that's really interesting. Jonathan, I have a question for you. It's particularly around the top bit of the triangle, the clients, and moving to better quality clients. There'll be a lot of people listening to this, whose businesses are significantly suffering, revenue is down. And in those instances, human nature is to kind of take what you can. What advice do you have to those people in these situations? And I think it's worth pointing out that you found yourself in a not dissimilar situation back when the last recession hit. And I'm curious about what you did then and what you learned from it and what people can take from that today.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I've always known. And James will also be aware, he's on the webinar, but that we had a very, very toxic client some years back, and it was dragging the whole agency down into this great big black hole vortex. And when we got rid of that toxic client, suddenly the agency was like a renaissance, and we could go again, and everybody had a smile back on their faces. And sometimes you don't realize when you're right in the thick of it that every agency will have these, by the way, and no one's going to get a perfect score on their client content or their client pack, but you will have a percentage that are just energy vampires that will just will suck and suck and suck and suck, and you can't get beyond that. And really, whilst it is money, it has a bigger effect on everything else. So I mean, Sean will agree on this. There was a couple of toxic agent clients that Sean had towards the beginning, and they were just basically hoovering up all of the resources. And then just to sort of jump back to when I was in the first recession, I sort of realized that we had one part of our business that was just, it was good, but it was just going down the Swanee very, very quickly. So we planned it out of the business really, really quickly. We pivoted the business. We went digital. So this was 2007, 2008. We went virtually completely digital. From then we did the digital marketing, but we couldn't call it digital marketing. We had to call it online PR because no one understood what digital marketing was. And then we started developing more websites and bigger installations and things like that. And then we could market them. And then we still had the creative side. So it worked really, really well. And we just flew actually after the last recession, just because we managed to pivot the business and really have a good look at the clients that we had and that we wanted. I don't know if that completely answers your question, but I think I would always say to every single agency owner, keep going through your clients and grade them. You know, what are they like to work with? Do they treat you as a partner? Do they treat you as a supplier? Do you know them well? Can you pick the phone up to them? Are they in a growing industry? Are they in a reclining industry? Are they just bumbling along? Are they the ones that are constantly looking at your bills? You know, you can spend half your time just trying to sort out billing. You know, are those the type of people that you want to work with in your agency? Or can you sort of like, can you pick the phone up and say, look, I've got an idea. Can I come and see you? You know, and those are the type of people that you want to have in your clients. Client base. If look, you'll always have one or two which aren't sorted, but if you can get nearly there, then you're already on the much better track. I mean, Sean, you might like to amplify what I've just said there.
Yeah. Who just it was probably 2 or 3 clients that I can think of that you know, whilst nice people, just weren't open, and probably the way that we positioned it sometimes as well, you know, coming through those growing pains of trying to take on a tech job that was a really big build design, and then you get to the points where we've not built in any project scope, we've not discussed what happens if you run out of money, and that's where the friction came. So at that point, that's where we started to decide, look, we position a project better, but we also decide who we work with. If they don't have the budget, if they don't have the mindset of there can be creep, then we don't want to work with you.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned pivoting there, Jonathan. I've got a sneaky suspicion there might be another triangle coming up that it involves some pivoting.
So if you want to, how did you guess? Yeah. Let me show you the next one, because this is my fundament. This is absolutely my fundamental business plan, if you like, for every single agency. And if you can manage it, you will absolutely smash it. Most agencies start on the left-hand side, which is an upturned triangle with projects weighing very, very heavily. And if you can sort of like move, so basically with Sean, I said, every project that you get in your business has to have something following it. It has to have something. It's got to turn into some type of retainer. It's got to be a regular client. You've got to get some, the LTV stands for long-term value out of it. You've got to have something. If it doesn't offer that, don't do it, because a £20,000 project now, or a 10,000 project now, which follows with a £15,000 a year retainer, is incredibly much more value over that period of time with the client that you'll have. So don't just go for the big projects. Go for the ones that are going to provide a long stream income. It might be not as big as the one project, but it's going to take you on a journey, which, because if you go from the left-hand side, which is the nabla, the upturned triangle, to the pyramid, you can see the difference. You see a smaller percentage of projects, a lot of regular retainer clients, and a lot of lifetime value clients. And that is absolutely bulletproof. You can't be knocked off that. You've got a really wide, you've got guaranteed income. So when you press your invoice run every month, it just goes out. You know, £50,000 just goes out, gets paid. Then your retainers, they just come in. And then the projects, suddenly you're in a position where you can really pick and choose, absolutely pick and choose the projects that you want to do that are best for you, and charge the right amount of money for them. And then they add even bigger to your pyramid. So it's a philosophy that I've got. And I do believe that every business is capable of doing this, but they just have to think a bit harder. Because we were on Stuart and I were on a webinar some time ago, and there was a marketing business there. I can't remember the name of them, but they were a big business, but they just had project-based stuff, you know, and that's so, whilst it just happens, yeah, and of course I guess that just happens month after month, and that's fine if that's your strategy, but it can, when something like this happens, you know, COVID-19, suddenly you hit a brick wall and all those projects suddenly overnight disappear. So that is basically my philosophy for building a bulletproof business. Now, there's obviously a lot more detail behind that, a lot more thinking behind it, but that in a simple graphic is how I do it.
And I think for anyone contemplating what they want their agency to look like in 2 years' time and how they can reposition themselves to be in the best possible shape, just having that visual image of that pyramid on the right-hand side, I think is so helpful. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, really, really powerful. I mean, again, this, you can apply it to every single bit, not just agencies, every single business. And pretty much, because if you get to that stage where you are, like Sean, we were very much on the way. We got to the tower stage very, very quickly, very, very early. And we were planning our next stage, which was the pyramid. So obviously our wheel has come off with COVID, but it's not going to stop us going in that direction for sure.
Okay, some questions are coming in. I'm going to just take the opportunity to ask them in a second. If you've got any more questions, then please do. I guess before we go to the questions, just final tips that you have learned along the way on your collective journeys. Maybe it's tips to help businesses who are rethinking about how they can reshape their businesses for the next couple of years. Sean, let's go to you first. Your, I guess, top few tips to leave people with.
Yeah, I mean, I just, again, to help people that watch this and the people that are watching now, is I just put a bit of a summary together as to what the value, the key value points over the last 2 years that I took. So yeah, surround yourself with the experts and people that have already walked the walk. So I've nailed that down to consultants, agency owners, networks, and groups. So we've joined up to the agency collective now. We're getting a lot of value from that, and just allows you to offload your problems, and they've got the answers for you instead of just sitting there and worrying about it. The next point would be the team. Definitely, once you there's different growth stages for the agency, and I know we're going to hit another one. But the culture book was the big pivotal point for me, allowing us to make sure that we attracted the right type of talent, but also at the same time that attracts the right type of tone of voice for your agency. And then the leadership, make the plan. So once you've got that plan, so we worked alongside Jonathan to create that plan. And one of the big things that really helped me was, if you make 5% change every month over a 12-month period, that's 60% plus. You're going to compound everything as well, because every change you make every month will compound itself over the the period or the timeline that you're looking at, instead of trying to, I suppose, try and cram everything into 1 month or whatever that looks like. But yeah, the 5% change was a big point that I lean on when I'm trying to do things every month and not trying to get worried about things not getting done on time.
Brilliant. Just before you leave that slide, we have a question on the culture book, actually, from Gareth, who said, who helped piece that together? Was it you? Was it a branding agency? Did you bring in an external consultant? Yeah, to what extent was it your own work versus external advice?
It was, so we have an in-house designer. So I gave him, I wrote the book myself, but that wasn't to say that I was the culture. I'm the all-seeing eye of what that culture should look like. So we created the initial draft, put a design behind it, and then we put that into the team. If you're working here, what type of culture do you want? And then we got that feedback, and then we progressed it and just kept reiterating it until we were all happy with. And I suppose what I was happy with as well, because I suppose it's the vision I'm trying to project as well. But just making sure we're all working in an agency where we're happy, and we're happy to come to work and happy to work with the clients that we've got.
Just to add to that, actually, which is an interesting side effect of having a culture book, of course, is that it's something you can share with your clients, and clients absolutely love it, because obviously clients buy into who they're going to be working with as well. So it's absolutely fundamentally important that the clients understand what your culture is, because that's what they're paying for. That's where the value is. I
think one of the things that surprised me was that when we actually got in front of the bigger clients, once we'd started this journey, and you actually put the culture book on the desk, and you put your company brochure on the desk and leave it with them so they don't forget you when you walk out the door, them seeing that you have this mindset, that you have this tone of voice, that you have this vision, it is massive. And leans to always winning those clients as well.
So questions just continue to come in. I will get to them in a second. Final tips from you, Jonathan. For anyone listening, what parting thoughts do you want to leave them with?
We sort of touched on it really, but I think actually every business, it's always good to go back to the fundamentals of what makes your business so good, and remind yourself of this, and go back to that triangle. Have we got the right clients? Have we got the right team? Is the leadership doing what it's supposed to do? So just go back to the fundamentals of what made you so good or so unique in the first place, and take it from there. That's so obvious. Sometimes people forget because they get too busy. And now is a time for reflection. And again, I heard someone else say it in the last webinar, said, whilst the bus isn't moving so quickly, it's easier to fix it. which I
And
thought
what an
was
opportunity.
an analogy.
Yeah, what an opportunity we all have now to rethink, to reimagine, and to build our businesses to a point where I do honestly think that we all have an opportunity to look back on this moment in a year or two's time and say, do you know what, this was actually a really good thing for our business because it forced us to change all of these things. When there's big pressure like there is now, it exposes us. It exposes all of our strengths and all of our weaknesses. And this is our opportunity to address all of those and imagine a bright future. So some great tips. Thank you for sharing your journey, guys. I have some questions now from people, a couple around the new business development. So, okay, so let's start with quite a big question. Great question from Nick. Do you have any recommendations for inbound and outbound lead generation strategies? Specifically, what tactics help you to become a farmer?
I mean, the HubSpot decision was massive. I know from the turnover we had at the time and the cost of HubSpot, I think $7,500 a year. You might have thought, well, that's a bit expensive, but worth its weight in gold. And the methodology and the support that they give you to actually create that content. You've got to have the technical skills and the know-how to deploy it, obviously yourself as an agency. But I think, just target your audience, decide who your audience is and who you want to work with, and start creating that content. And you can use it as part of your sales process. It's not just about the inbound leads that you get, it's part of the sales conversation as well, which is what a lot of people don't understand. Is once you've had that initial conversation with somebody, you can say, oh, we've got this thought leadership on the questions that you were asking me. So it adds that value, it adds that credibility before you, and sometimes you don't even need to sell yourself because they can see that you've got that knowledge.
In terms of volume and regularity of this content, like how much are you putting out? Where are you putting out? Do you intend to put out? Just to give a flavour of it.
Yeah, I think at the start, we actually did an exercise where we did one blog a day for 30 days to see if it made more of a difference than doing 1 or 2 blogs a week. I'm going back 4 years ago. That 1 blog a day did make a difference, but I would now lean towards 1 quality blog a week and a more in-depth one. It's not about the quantity; it definitely is about the quality, and again making partnerships with people to share content and create the links and just drive that SEO juice, if I can call it that.
Jonathan, your tips on this subject?
Well, actually, I was just focusing on another question, actually. So can I take this question because it's from John Gilman, who's a fellow I know from.
It's a good question. Go for it.
It's a really good question, and I've got very, very strong feelings about this, and Sean knows exactly what they are. The responsibility for securing quality business is absolutely the business owner. Now, whether the business owner has a sidekick and someone to help them, but absolutely the business owner knows and can tell much more easily than a business development manager or executive, whatever, which is right for them. And a really good analogy is, well, it's not even an analogy, it's you put Sean in front of a client, a prospective client, Sean will see between 10, 15, 20 opportunities with that client. A business development person will probably see maybe 2 or 3 or 4. And a business development executive simply cannot sell the culture and the essence of the business like the person who founded it or the man at the top. Doesn't mean that Sean then has to go off and do all the work, like with all of the pricing and things like that, but he has got to be there leading it. Absolutely, 100%, no question. So I hope that answers that, John.
An unequivocal answer, which is
absolutely. Yeah.
So one of the questions, Tim's asked a really interesting question. What is your biggest piece of advice to make the leap from a one-man band agency who brings in outsourced resource to a small agency employing people in-house?
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of clients like that, because actually what I've done is I've done like a bit of a workshop for that. And what they need to do is they need to just take the leap, because once they've done it and they're in that situation where they are a small agency, and then it just changes their mindset. They have to start thinking like an agency. They have to start getting a bit of business acumen. And lo and behold, pretty much guaranteed that they go from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 very quickly and very successfully. But they've just got to take the leap, because if they don't, then they'll still think like a one-man band who just hires in when they need resource.
Yeah.
So, but also that's fine, by the way. If they want to stay like that, that's also a good strategy. And I've advised one person to do exactly that.
One of the things that has prevented, or traditionally prevented, people from being able to take that leap is the funding. They can never get enough cash in the bank in order to have the confidence that they can pay the salary for the X number of months it will take to then generate more work and to go on this journey. But right now, or in fact, as from Monday, you can apply with a few clicks for a government loan or government-backed loan 100% for £50,000 with no personal guarantees through their bounce-back loans. And this could be the perfect opportunity, as long as you have a robust business plan going forward, to use the money to invest in your business and take that leap.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and sadly, we will know that there will be some casualties out of this, because some companies will probably not have a good set of clients, and they won't have much cash reserves in the bank. And actually, you'll probably find that these companies will splinter into sort of like 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s. There'll be a lot of new agencies popping up over the next 6 to 12 to 18 months because of this.
I've got a question here from Neil. Hi Neil, hope you're well. What size do you recommend an agency is before starting to work with someone like Jonathan? I guess a question for you, Jonathan. You've got experience of working with a range of businesses.
Yeah, I think probably. I think you've got to cut your teeth. You've got to have a little bit of wool on your back. You've got to understand who you are a little bit. So probably Sean's size, really, 4 to 8 people, maybe a bit bigger, but you definitely benefit because obviously it just helps you. You've got someone by your side who's got a ton of experience that you can take on board.
And if you're sure, go on, Sean, go for it.
No, so I was just going to say, I think the biggest thing that whether it's at 4 or at 8 people or even at 15 and 16, because we know there's different growing pains as an agency, was the actual metrics of the business as well. Was something I didn't have a grasp on 2 years ago. It was the retainers, the projects, how much profit we were making. And, relating back to your bench press report, Peter, as well now, is the next stage of our journey is to get more detail on project profitability and not just the agency's profit, because we know that that's where the next level of growth is going to come from. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right.
So that completes the questions. I'm just going to add one final point on to Neil's there is, Neil, obviously I know you're a member of the agency collective, and I think for those smaller agencies out there, well, really for any agency out there, being part of a community like that where you can ask questions of your peers, you can chat to someone who's a little bit ahead of you or maybe at the same stage as you, and you can post questions and say, how would you handle this? You can gain best practice. It's incredible that such a thing exists and is so vibrant and active, and it's a wonderful way to get that peer support as you go on this journey. And I encourage anyone who's not a member of that to check it out and go to the agencycollective.co.uk and see if it's your cup of tea. Final questions to you guys. First of all, thank you, because I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for giving up your time to share some tips. What I'm curious to understand as a final thought for everyone is when you, in 2 years' time, when you look back on this moment, what do you think, question for Sean, first of all, what do you think you'll be really glad that you did in your business? And then for Jonathan, what do you think agencies generally will be really glad that they did in this moment? So kind of like this imagine hindsight thing, put yourself in 2 years' time, look back on today, and Sean, what are you going to be really glad that you did right now?
Yeah, I think looking after the partners, so we call them clients, but they are partners now because we're in it together, is looking after those partners that we've tiered as, these guys are really bought into us, they're focused on the journey that we're all trying to take together. But yeah, looking after those partners, and also about, I suppose, tightening up our brand and tightening up our internal processes to give a better service. That's what I'm really focusing on in this time. Yeah.
Cool. Jonathan, final thoughts from you?
Well, actually, I would just, I would say what you just said, actually, Peter. I think this has been a really interesting time because we've had more time on LinkedIn and podcasts and webinars and all that sort of thing. And I've learned absolutely tons. I've probably added to my knowledge 10, 15, 20, 25%. And quite frankly, seen lots of stuff I just I disagree with, which is also fine. But I think the advice that you gave to that smaller agency, just reach out, because actually I was, when I was in the agency in Strawberry back in Hull, I knew quite a lot of the agencies in Hull. I was friends with them, and actually we're all in it together. We are absolutely all in it together. We should be sharing this sort of knowledge. It doesn't mean that because whilst there is competition, of course, in the agency land, but you will find your own tribe. You will find your own. We're not eating everybody's lunch all the time. There will be crossover, but actually you're better together. And providing that you share experiences, we all become better because of it. There's no question about it. So that's what I'll be looking back on. More connections.
Fab. So good luck to everyone listening to this. Thank you to Jonathan. Thank you to Sean for giving up your time. I've really enjoyed it. Hope everyone has too. And this is part 1 of 3. So there's 2 other parts coming. Sean, do you want to quickly explain what's coming next?
Yeah, I think what we wanted to do, Jonathan, is, I suppose, give a bit more detail as to what that journey's looked like, hasn't it? And hopefully give some resources to the other individuals, agency owners, to help them on their journey. Because the last 2 years has been fast and exciting for us. COVID, like Jonathan said, has put the brakes on slightly, but it doesn't stop where we're heading. And I think if over the next 2 webinars we can give people a bit of an insight into the actions that we took, how we did it, and why we did it, I think that's what we'd hope to give people on those next 2 webinars. Yeah.
Fab. Look forward to them. I'll see you guys soon. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye.
Thanks, Jonathan. Bye.